Hello there, this is Stormdog, and today I'd like to talk about the 2022 film Medieval with Ben Foster. Like the name implies, this is a medieval film and it deals with a specific historical character, Jan Žižka. Please be patient with me, I'm going to try to nail as many of these pronunciations as I can. I'm really excited about the history reflected in this movie, so any mistake in accent or pronunciation, it's not from a place of disrespect. It can be hard to find well-made medieval films, especially with good battles and fights, especially with armor and props that don't look horrible. I was very pleased with this movie for its production values and action. Medieval, also known as Jan Žižka or Warrior of God, depending which market you purchased it in, is a Czech historical action drama directed by Petr Jákl. Set in the early 15th century before the Hussite Wars, and yes, Jan Hus does play a big role in this and shows up in the film. The film follows a young Jan Žižka, played by Ben Foster, a skilled mercenary who becomes a legendary Bohemian military commander, winning battles against often impossible odds. After the death of the Holy Roman Emperor, the empire plunges into chaos as feuding brothers King Wenceslas of Bohemia and King Sigismund of Hungary vie for the throne. Žižka and his team of mercenaries, a skilled bunch, is hired by Lord Boris, played by Michael Caine of all people, to kidnap Lady Catherine, played by Sophia Lowe, fiancée of the powerful Lord Rosenberg, played by Til Schweiger, to prevent Rosenberg's alliance with the corrupt Sigismund in what, if I understand the plot, would require getting the brother to Rome. The main henchman for the bad guys, Torak, working for Sigismund, is quickly at odds with Žižka. Torak throughout the film commits a lot of atrocities. This was a brutal time to live. Žižka and his band are forced to kidnap Catherine as a pawn in all these dealings, especially when the people in power won't keep their word. As Žižka navigates political intrigue and absolutely brutal battles, he forms a bond with Catherine, who is also the niece to the King of France, adding more complications, and her dedication to the common people, as well as her faith in Christ, challenges his belief in the divine right of kings, which he already had much reason to be disgruntled with, as the movie shows. Basically war crimes against his family, forcing him to make horrible choices. Disillusioned by corruption and seeing a higher calling, Žižka leads a rebel army to fight for the people, setting the stage for his rise as a folk hero. The film blends, as I said, gritty action, political drama, and themes of duty and rebellion. It can be noted for a complex plot, and some people say uneven pacing. I had a few pages of notes on the plot, but I'm really trying to simplify this. The movie really keeps you guessing, with many twists and turns as alliances change, but it's going to keep you immersed along the way with what they're showcasing, and the action especially, not just the medieval areas that you're looking at, but the action as well is very grim stuff. The action in this is the sort of stuff we rarely see. Medieval war borders on a horror film to see what was done, or even what it took to succeed and live through a battle like these. The ambush scenes are all really good. There's a couple times they set these up, and it plays into the larger history, as Žižka took some of these methods, like the war wagons he developed, and used them to defeat much larger enemies. There is a sequence in here where they have to do tunnel fighting, and it is excellent, as you see what techniques can be applied and what weapons wouldn't fare as well. The movie doesn't get great ratings, with even some complaining about how dark parts of the film are. It seems to be almost completely natural lighting, so this does make sense. There are also those who feel the score is underwhelming. The plot is a lot to understand, especially if you know nothing about the history. Another point, I understand where they're coming from. The filmmakers had to edit down this huge narrative into about 125 minutes. I was familiar with Jan Žižka due to his part in church history, especially Baptist history. He led the Taborites, a radical Hussite faction, and his leadership was driven by both religious zeal and a commitment to justice, protecting peasants and commoners from feudal oppression. He was already a historical figure I admired. This movie shows early stages of all that, the tactics and weapons he developed, how he ended up fighting who he did, as well as the beginnings of his literal blindness, although history does not record when exactly he lost his first eye. Jan Žižka was the first commander of 15th century who used, during the Hussite Wars, two different kinds of guns on the battlefield, the pistola and the Haufneis, from which we get the words pistol and howitzer. He is one of the few military commanders throughout history to have never lost a battle that he led, even after he went completely blind. His innovative tactics, including the use of war wagons, basically fortified carts equipped with often some type of artillery, or Wagenburgs in the original language, allowed his often outnumbered and poorly equipped forces to defeat larger, better armed armies of the Holy Roman Empire and Catholic coalitions, and this movie gives you insight into that. There is unfortunately no Sabaton song about him, but he does appear in the Kingdom Come Deliverance games, the second one. I know a lot of fans were upset with some of the approaches to history in that second game. I have not personally played those. Žižka didn't even die in battle, but of the plague in 1424 during the siege of Pribysław. Žižka requested that his skin be flayed off his body after death and made into a drum so he could continue to lead his fellow Hussites into battle, at least according to legend. That's pretty metal. The drum was supposedly captured by Frederick II of Prussia in 1744, but later disappeared. His death didn't end his influence. His followers chanting "Žižka lives" continued his tactics and won key victories. His strategies influenced later military thinkers, and his name is synonymous with Czech resilience. I found out that the dude was even at the Battle of Agincourt. There's a whole trilogy of films about him from the 1950s focusing on the more famous parts of his career, while this film is more of an origin story. I hate to even use that term. I know when a story involves religion and denominations, it can descend into a lot of differing viewpoints that refuse to agree with anyone else, but you have to admit, this is an awesome story. The film holds the distinction of being the most expensive Czech film ever made, with a budget of KC 500 million. I believe that is Czech koruna, approximately 20.3 million USD. This significant investment reflects the ambition to create a large-scale historical epic, which was a rarity for Czech cinema, which typically operates on smaller budgets. They even decided to do it in English instead of Czech. To enhance historical authenticity, Medieval was filmed on location at various historical sites across the Czech Republic. Prague was a primary filming hub, with its picturesque landscapes and medieval architecture providing a wonderful backdrop that contrasted with the film's very brutal battle scenes. This choice of real locations over studio sets adds a lot of visual depth and realism. It feels real. It feels immersive. The film's epic battle sequences, a hallmark of its action-heavy narrative, posed major logistical challenges. Sophia Lowe, the actress who played Lady Catherine, noted in an interview with MovieWeb that filming these intense scenes in Prague's historic districts and these beautiful locations required careful coordination to capture the gritty, chaotic feel of medieval warfare. The use of practical effects, such as real weapons and armor, added to the physical demands on the cast and crew, but really pays off in the end product. The film's battle scenes are a high point and a unique visual, involving large-scale reenactments of medieval warfare with hundreds of extras, horses, and period-accurate weaponry. The coordination of these sequences required meticulous planning by stunt choreographers and the cinematography team led by Jesper Tolfner to capture the chaos and scale of combat. Medieval relies heavily on these practical effects to depict its battles with minimal CGI. Little that I'm not even sure I noticed any. This approach, while more demanding, contributes to the film's raw, visceral feel. It's a type of action and brutality I rarely see even in these medieval films. On a scale of graphic sword and spear violence, we have at the low end a Narnia-type film, in the middle to upper a Lord of the Rings original trilogy, and at the high end, rare films like this and maybe such things as The Northman. Ben Foster plays the lead role, and he often plays great secondary characters, like in the remake of 3:10 to Yuma, one of his best roles in my opinion. Along that Western mythos, he's also very good in Hell or High Water, part of Taylor Sheridan's unofficial trilogy of modern Westerns. He is also good in Hostiles, one of the few big-budget Westerns we've gotten lately. He was also in the remake of The Mechanic as the one who tries to replace the title character, and has an important part in 30 Days of Night, a great vampire movie. Michael Caine is extremely famous, and it would be hard to pick a few from his body of work. Weirdly enough, at time of writing the script, there is a story going around that he is going to come out of retirement to again pair with Vin Diesel on a sequel to The Last Witch Hunter. I would totally watch that, but I will not claim it will be good. One of you in the future needs to comment if this ever developed. This was, at this time, the second to last film he has done. In America, Til Schweiger is best known for his role in Inglourious Basterds. He was just recently in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare and has had smaller roles in films like The Replacement Killers and Atomic Blonde. While not as well known in America, in Germany, he's Germany's best known actor and also the country's most successful director, and runs his own production company, Barefoot Films, based in Berlin. I'm really not familiar with the rest of the cast or the director. This is definitely the biggest film he's directed, but he is one of the producers behind Land of Bad, an excellent Special Forces movie. Check it out if you get the chance. Weirdly enough, in its home country, this film opened against Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Thor, Love and Thunder, and outperformed them. Well, I mean, that makes sense, at least the second one. Maybe they have a better system of education there. It did not, however, do well in America. The film uniquely balances intense, bloody battle sequences with a romantic subplot between Žižka and Lady Catherine, whose character helps challenge his views on authority and faith. It never goes anywhere really unrealistic though, not like Titanic levels. This dynamic, while fictionalized and with no doubt liberties taken for filmmaking, adds emotional depth to the action-heavy narrative as well as what happens to Žižka's family, setting it apart from other purely combat-focused historical films, but without ever sacrificing the great action in it. The director, Peter Jakl, a Czech filmmaker with a background in stunts and acting, brought a personal passion to the project, even appearing in a cameo role. His vision to elevate Žižka's story to an epic scale reflects a national pride in Czech history, making the film for them a cultural milestone, despite its mixed critical and financial reception. Despite the heavy history and topics that it tackles, the film earned $4.4 million globally. With a $20.3 million budget, and the only $4.4 million in theatrical gross, Medieval fell far short of recouping its production costs through the box office revenue alone. There is always the chance of recouping that with home video and streaming deals, but due to a lack of data and the cultural reception of the film internationally, I do really doubt that. Which is a shame, because it would be awesome if the Czech Republic could do a couple more projects like this. This movie has almost unparalleled medieval combat, and it's a person that really lived and really lived up to the legend. It seems to currently be available on Hulu and Disney Plus, a very weird place to find this film. I recommend the movie based on the historical topic, the brutal combat, the realism, and Ben Foster. Until next time, this has been Stormdog.